Hello. I cannot tell you how great it is to stand on this stage and see all this black excellence. I want you to know, I just left my mother in Las Vegas and she was so upset that she couldn't be here. Not because she wanted to hear me speak, because she wanted to see Michelle Obama. I spoke at the 2016 Democratic Convention right before Michelle Obama. End of the night, my mom runs over to me and says, hey, what a great speech. And I'm like, thank you, Mom. She goes, not you, Michelle. My mom has a way of keeping me grounded in who I am and where I'm from. I had this privilege. My mom graduated from Fisk University. All right. And on her 50th reunion, I was invited to be the commencement speaker. And I went, I was so honored. I was the mayor of the city of Newark. I was walking around like I was somebody special. I sat down at the banquet the night before the speech, and my mom comes over to me as I'm having a conversation with some trustee. She's like, boy, get up. And I'm like, Mom, stop. She's like, get out of your seat, boy. And I'm like, Mom, I'm the mayor, for crying out loud. But she starts pulling me around and introducing me to people that she said I had to know. She said, boy, this is the woman that led our boycotts of businesses that wouldn't serve blacks. This is the woman that led the sit-in movement that helped integrate this town. It's everybody that she brought me around as she was echoing the words of my childhood. Do not forget where you've come from. Do not forget the shoulders that you stand on. I was blessed to grow up with a circle of African-American women, Deltas and AKAs, Link sisters and sisters in the community and at church, who always helped me understand that the history of this nation, from abolition to civil rights, from workers' rights to women's rights, black women have been at the center of every movement for social justice in our country's history. And now we've got to realize in this political season that if black women are going to be the highest voters in this country, then the agenda of African-American women has to be at the center of the Democratic Party agenda. Because right now, the reality is unacceptable. Black women have the highest levels of workforce participation. 80% of black mothers are the breadwinners for their family. But still, the pay gap for black women making only 61 cents of every dollar that a white male makes is unacceptable in our country. We've got to know that the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs in America are African-American women. But they still do not get the access to capital that they deserve. In fact, between about 2008 and 2017, just 0.0006% of all the startup capital was going to black women entrepreneurs. And we have a nation right now where black women, like all women, are the mothers of future leaders, the mothers of future teachers and engineers and artists, and God willing, the mother of a future president. But yet we now have a nation that not only leads the developed world in maternal mortality, but black women have 4 times the maternal mortality rates of white women. This is unacceptable. And it's not enough for a candidate to tell you what they're going to do about these issues, because they didn't start yesterday. These issues in our communities have been the challenge for so many years. That's why I am proud to be a leader that has spent my entire professional life in an urban community fighting to make headway on these issues. As mayor of the city of Newark, we work to expand healthcare access to women in our communities. As a United States Senator, I led the bill to make sure we close the maternal mortality rate. And as President of the United States, I'm going to make once and for all Americans, health care a right in this country. I helped to get black women entrepreneurs started in Newark, and I'm proud of them. As a United States Senator, I fought to expand access to small business loans to black women, and as President of the United States, I will create the historically largest pool of capital for non-traditional entrepreneurs in our country's history. And I will tell you this, we have a lot more work to do. Look, when I came out of law school, I moved into Newark and eventually moved into some high-rise projects. I always say the best education I got in those years wasn't from Yale Law School, it was from the streets of Newark. And one of my greatest professors was a woman named Miss Virginia Jones. Now, Miss Jones was this incredible leader, but her son in the 80s was murdered in the lobby of the building I would move into. I want you all to know that if America hasn't broken your heart, you don't love her enough. She taught me that in life, you're gonna face many defeats, but you can never be defeated. That you may have serious pain, but that's gotta fuel your purpose. This is a woman who never left this community and taught me that hope is the active conviction that despair will never have the last word. We are in a time right now where a person in the White House is spewing bigotry and racism. We have a person in the White House right now that's pushing policies that hurt communities of color. But this has never defined us in America. The existence of demagoguery and hate has never defined us as a nation. What defines us is how we choose to respond to the challenges before us. As Miss Jones told me after a horrible shooting in our neighborhood, she told me, son, do not lose faith, but remember that faith without works is dead. And so now I call on everyone here, as we listen to these candidates, including myself, don't just listen to their vision of what they will do, talk to them about what they already have done. Because we need people who are loyal to our communities, who will stand with our communities, won't just come around when it's election time, but will be around when we need them. Because there is no justice for anyone in America unless it's justice for everyone in America. We cannot be a nation that is truly free until everyone's free. And I know if this country is going to make it to the promised land, that right there at the top of that mountain will be African American women raising the flag of America. Thank you.
Cory Booker, Senator Cory Booker, give him a hand. Senator Booker, let me ask you, one of the things that you said in your speech is about dealing with what people have done. And you as mayor of Newark have had to confront the issue of violence against women, violence, period. I've heard you talk about hearing gunfire out the window of your house, your apartment, because you still live in the hood in Newark. What would you propose we deal with in terms of gun violence? There's been 40 shootings over the weekend already, I'm told, in Chicago. What could the President of the United States do about this gun violence in our community?
Well, I've said it already that faith without works is dead. And the challenge we have right now, as the Reverend said, there are communities like mine. Just about 2 weeks ago, I had 7 people shot in my neighborhood. Last year, Shahad Smith, I will say his name, was killed with an assault rifle at the top of my block. Black men in this country right now are 6% of the nation's population, but we make up over 50% of the homicide victims. And every single day in America, we have 100 people dying due to gun violence. Doing nothing is no longer acceptable because we have seen a country that when people are slaughtered at houses of worship, from synagogues to churches, we do nothing. We've seen in America where people are killed at a concert in Vegas or a nightclub in Florida, and we do nothing. Children being shot under desks in schools, and we do nothing. And so I want everyone to know this is not just a policy issue for me, it is very personal. And if I am your president, I'm going to bring a fight to the corporate gun lobby and the NRA like they have never, ever seen before. And I have challenged everyone running for president. I have put forth the boldest and farthest reaching policy agenda that will drop shootings down in this country dramatically, and I challenge everyone to step up with me. Because right now you're seeing shootings in communities like mine, mass shootings in too many communities. We must act now before it happens in your community, in your church, to your family. The sworn oath of a president is to defend this nation. And when we've had more people dying, Reverend, in my lifetime due to gun violence than every single war combined, from the Revolutionary War to present, that the job of a president of the United States must be not just to fight this problem, but to make sure that we as a people win the fight against gun violence. I will win that fight.
We have also had the battle in the Congress around President Trump's tax laws, which have benefited private corporations and the wealthy. And they talk a lot about the economic gap with the rich and the poor, but they don't talk about the race gap, because being poor black is different than being poor white, and getting access to capital, which Rich Luke personifies, is different for blacks than it is for whites. How would you deal with the race wealth gap and the race economic gap?
So we really can't have this conversation without talking about the historical roots of wealth inequality in our country. We are a nation right now that has savage inequalities. About for every $10 of wealth in a white family, it's about $1 of wealth for a black family. And what a lot of people forget is a lot of the things that allowed families to build up wealth over the years, through home ownership, through the GI Bill and more, in many ways blacks were excluded from many of these opportunities with redlinings and other policies designs. We have to deal with racial wealth inequalities in our country. And if we don't speak to this problem, it will persist. In fact, the racial wealth gap over the last 2 decades has gotten wider and it has not closed. And so a lot of the policy ideas that I have don't just address poverty in general, but they also specifically get at this issue. And so when I talk about access to capital, home ownership, when I talk about entrepreneurialism, a lot of this is there. But Reverend, I want to specifically talk about one policy that I have that Columbia University literally said would close the racial wealth gap in our country. And that's something called baby bonds. And what it is that every child in America, every child born in our country, as a birthright, would have a savings account put up for them with $1,000 in it. And then depending on their family's income, every year, they would get up to $2,000. The lowest income kids in our country would graduate with upwards of $50,000 in wealth in that account. And in fact, because of the racial wealth gap, the average black child would have close to $30,000. The average white child would have about $15,000. Now, kids could use that when they become 18 to buy a home, to invest in college or workforce training. And as I said, Columbia University said it would be one of the most impactful policies to equalizing the floor and the foundation of opportunity for all, closing the racial wealth gap and giving everybody what you need in this country to get ahead. Because paychecks help you get by, but wealth in America is what helps you get ahead. So understand this. This has been my life work. Since I graduated from school, going to communities like my city of Newark that are too often overlooked and looked down upon or cast aside. I know that there is wealth in all communities in America. And we should not have a nation where some kids get opportunity and some don't. Where some communities get investment capital and some don't. Where some people get economic well-being and others are denied it. And as your president, one of my driving purposes will be address this issue, not with lip service, but policies like baby bonds that actually address the actual issue and address the past economic harms that were purposely done because of white supremacy and the persistence of racism in our country.